Let's talk about the sponsor of today's show, Prize Picks. You can use promo code HMA, get $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. Link is in the description. And what I like about Prize Picks is they give you a lot of different options. I had a lot of fun during the draft. I actually won some pretty good scratch, saying that Ruben Bain would not be a top 10 pick. He ended up falling to number 15, so that went well for me. And there are other futures. So if you want to put futures on the win totals for any team in this division, you can do that. Or maybe some statistics for players within the divisions, you can do that. And also you can do your traditional more or less, which we've done right here with the NBA playoffs. So here's what I've got. I've got James Harden tonight with more than 14.5 points. I got LeBron James with more than half a point. And I got Marcus Smart with more than 2.5 assists. I got a 2.4 multiplier on this one. Put 20 down to win 48. You can tail me or you can fade me, but make sure you use promo code HMA and the link in the description. Play Prize Picks. Win good prizes. Or Green Bay Packers got started a little bit late just because of the major trade they made last offseason to go get one Micah Parsons. But man, they started it out with a bang, getting Brandon Cisse out of South Carolina. Also picked up one of my very favorite prospects and denied Dennis Sutton. But talk to me overall about what you saw from your Green Bay Packers. Even though they got a late start, I got to imagine you feel really, really good about what you saw from them during the draft.
Yeah, I feel like this year there's a lot less of, Goot drafted all these bust players, and I think it was kind of a breath of fresh air to see the Packers kind of go into this thing and draft a little bit more for need. They're a big BPA team, and I agree with drafting BPA when you're building up your roster. That's usually the way you should go. But I feel like once you're a few pieces away from really getting to that next step, being a championship team, it's okay to kind of be a little bit aggressive and get some of your needs. And like you said, had to wait a while all the way to 52. The Packers didn't have a first round pick. So if you accompany this draft class with half of Micah Parsons, which I think you 100% should, it turns out to be a really solid draft class that has some players that are instant contributors, in my opinion. And with the fact that you didn't have a first round pick, multiple of these players could be instant contributors, I think is very impressive. Starting with Brandon Cisse, who, there was some buzz with him maybe going late first. I always thought early second. I didn't look into him too much before the Packers drafted him because, one, I saw him as kind of like a physical press man corner, which we brought in Gannon. He likes to run a lot of zone, but Gutekunst said it really well after drafting Cisse. We don't want to get so honed in on just scheme-specific players. We want players to be able to do different things. And Brandon Cisse is that. He's not a scheme-specific player. He could play man, he could play zone, he's physical. And on top of that, he's a 20-year-old player. He's only going to go up from here. He's one of the few 20-year-old players out of this class. He was 45 on consensus. Very, very good in run support. Gets grabby at times, but I think with the right coaching, he's going to become the starting cornerback number one of the Green Bay Packers by 2027. I think he's going to contest for a starting spot this year. Maybe wins it over Carrington Valentine. I really like the pick there at 52. Now, in the third round with Chris McClellan trading up, it's a little bit aggressive, but I kind of see their point here. Again, kind of drafting for need. The Packers went out and got Hargrave in the offseason. They have Devontae Wyatt, two guys that are more pass rush defensive tackles. Hargrave can play some nose here and there, but they really didn't have like a two-gapping defensive lineman in the middle of that defense. And Chris McClellan is that, but he also is versatile as well. He could play some three-tech. He could play some nose. He can do a bunch of different things for them. I don't like giving up a fifth-round pick there. I just feel like after trading away Wicks, having those two fifth-round picks, the Packers pick really well in the fifth typically. I was like, I wish they could have kept that. But if they go up and get their guy, be a little bit aggressive, which I feel like a lot of these NFC North teams did in this draft, I'm not that mad about it. And Jesse, I would agree with you. The denied Dennis Sutton pick, I had them trading down in the second and selecting denied Dennis Sutton with their first pick. That was my final prediction. So to hear his name called at 120, I was jumping for joy. Consensus 73 player. I think it's my favorite pick of this draft class. There's tons of upside. He's super athletic. I think he's the 10th highest RAS of over 2,200 edge rushers since 1987. I think he could be a three-down player. He's a terrific run defender, and the Packers desperately needed depth after losing 1,200 snaps from Rashawn Gary and J.J. Enagbare. In the fifth round, Jaeger Burton really feels like a Packers lineman. It's a fifth round. It's an athletic interior offensive lineman, so to me, this just feels right for the Packers. A little bit of a reach here, I'd say. He's consensus 179, but an athletic center. There's no real true center on this roster. Sean Ryan is kind of getting paid to play it. Will he? What if Belton doesn't play well at right guard and Sean Ryan has to slide back there? Well, here's your contingency plan and Jager Burton. 6th round, Damani Jackson from Alabama, the cornerback. Again, Gutekunst mentioned multiple times that we're going to be adding numbers to the cornerback room, so it seemed all but sure he was going to add at least 2 cornerbacks in this draft class, a small class of 6 players after 2 trades. Damani is an interesting player to me because he got benched in 2025, came back later in the year. I thought played some decent football. But you look back in 2024 and overall his career as a prospect, he has a lot of upside. I just think it's waiting to kind of be unlocked there. But this is a 6th round pick, more corner depth, some special teams help, low risk, high reward. And then the final pick, a lot of people love this one, Trey Smack in the 6th round after trading both 7s for Trey Smack. First off, I mean, how can a kicker with last name Smack not work? So that's my hope here, right? McManus had a lot of issues last year, got hurt. Haversick had to come in. McManus obviously missing kicks in the playoffs. It's kicker woes has been a problem for the Packers ever since Crosby left the Packers. So I'm not mad at them being a little aggressive here and trading 2 7th rounders that might not even make the roster and getting your potential future kicker, which I hope he will be. So overall, really happy with this draft. I think I would have liked to see a couple more picks. Obviously, those trade-ups, you have to get rid of them. You didn't address tight end, which is severely lacking depth. You didn't get another running back, which, you lost Emmanuel Wilson, so there's a little bit issue there. You didn't get a tackle. So there's a few things that I don't like, but overall, I'm very happy with it, and I think Packers fans are too, honestly.
Overall, you guys put together a pretty solid draft when it comes to the amount of picks that you guys had. And why don't you walk me through everything? How are you feeling? How are the Lions fans feeling about this draft? Lay it all out right here.
Yeah, I think. I'm not too zoomed in. This is okay. We're all right. We're doing okay. No, I think it starts with the fact that we took an edge rusher, so immediately people were pumped. Honestly, that alone, everybody's happy. Like we didn't have to do anything else, and honestly, it didn't matter who the guy was. People were going to be happy if we took an edge rusher early, and we finally did that. And that was kind of the whole takeaway from the draft. So the fact that he went to Michigan just makes it a little bit better. It just works out. And then they're like, hey, let's double back get another Michigan guy and rolled her. We'll just make everybody happy. But overall, I think that most people were pretty cool with how it went. And to what you said, this was what felt like the most straightforward draft I feel like I've seen since Brad Holmes has been here. I mean, the first year we didn't really have anything, but since that time, like this draft was very straight down the line. Positions were very predictable to where they were going to go draft, and also where they took them in the draft I thought were super predictable. Like you said, I mean, we all knew they were going tackle in the first round. Like there wasn't really another path to go there because he kind of had to, and then they did, and it was just about who. And then when the second round came around, even to the point of like they're probably going to have to move up to get somebody, they're going to do it, and it's like, all right, they moved up to get the edge rusher. It was just about putting the name to the team, but the position was very straightforward. But like you said, starting with Blake Miller, to me, I wasn't sure where they were going to go at tackle because they had signed Larry Borum, and it was like, I don't know how much trust they have in him. Then you also have Manu, so where are they going to feel with these tackles? But as you pointed out, I think in terms of readiness, he's going to be in a good spot. He's also one of the more athletic offensive tackles that were on the board at that time. Like I had thought like an Ihanachor was going to be the route, but obviously it's a kind of a different level of, I would say, awareness, and where he's at right now in his career doesn't mean it won't, catch up. But that being said, very athletic offensive tackle. He's going to be scheme versatile for them, and he's got the awareness and the footwork and all those things that immediately give him like day one starting material. So I think for the Lions there, I don't want to say they played it safe, but they went with a guy that was scheme versatile and that's immediately going to fit in and give them help. And like you said, he'll just go to right tackle, move Sewell to left tackle. So that one, it just felt like a double. It was like, we're not doing anything crazy here. We're keeping this very straightforward. And historically, we've done pretty well taking linemen in the middle of the first round. We had Frank there. We got Decker there. So hopefully we just did that again with Miller. Moving on from there, though, the Derek Moore selection. This is kind of like just the Lions mold. Like at this point, you kind of just like can see what a Lion looks like by the type they draft and the style. And you got to that point where edge rusher was really getting thin, and you kind of had to move up as you had him go, and then Young went, and it was like, all right, kind of fell off. But the style that they went after is the Lion style. Like even in a world where an Armasa Thomas or a Howell sitting there, they probably wouldn't draft him. They would have probably took Derek Moore because they would have went with a guy that's a little more physical, a little bit more built. You can just see it by his frame. He's filled out. He's going to play the run. And they got really excited about the development, the growth as a pass rusher. But you can always tell where it starts with those guys. It's like it's got to be here first, and then that part kind of is next stuff. Like obviously he has to be able to rush a passer because we're not going to use a second round pick on a guy that can't. But it's going to start with that element first. And Derek Moore checks that box. So again, it was just kind of straight down the line. It's like, all right, that makes sense. His Lions fit. I think after that, though, is where things got pretty fun. Getting Jimmy Rolder was a lot of fun to go back that route because for me, like, I had no idea where this guy was going to go draft-wise, but I just always remembered when they played Ohio State and immediately, like, instinctually, like, oh, that guy pops. Like this guy, who is this dude? And I think for them, they tend to, at least for me, when I end up going and looking back, it's not always the most athletic guys, but usually I look back and it's like, okay, they were very smart players, you know, and for a guy like Rolder, he's only had like 11 starts. I mean, the guy hasn't played that much football for Michigan, a very big role, yet he still felt like one of their smartest players defensively. And again, frame-wise, he fits. We don't tend to take really little linebackers. You know, we get guys that are pretty lengthy, stack shed, all of those things. They're versatile between both backer positions. So that made sense. I think for them, the Abney one, a lot of people felt like that was a value pick. I think in some ways it was because you're able to just sit there and take that position, and it's a role that could be open. It's a role that I wanted to see them fill, which was potential competition in the nickel role. He could play wide for us, but we went down this route before. Guy plays inside, outside, more scheme versatile. I think in the secondary is kind of the approach with a piece like this. He can kind of play different roles, but specifically, this is a position that they had to look at getting better, and for them, they were able to just sit there and take that position because of how the draft had went up to that point. For what you said, Jesse, I wrote that down too. Kendrick Law is my favorite draft pick as of now. At the time, I think a lot of people are like, yeah, we don't need receiver. And I didn't think we needed a receiver coming in. But then when someone like brought it up in my chat, they're like, I think we need a receiver. I started looking through. I'm like, you know what? You actually could be making some sense here, right? Because wide receiver 5 is kind of up in the air. And to add Kendrick Law, I don't know that he's going to be very productive year one. Like, I think it's a real possibility he doesn't do much at all year one. But he's not going to get cut. And for me, he just kind of has like traits that I think a lot of our past receiver draft picks had, like kind of just the Isaac Tesla hands, the way that he catches the ball. Doesn't have much of a route tree, but Tesla wasn't super productive at Arkansas. Then you go to St. Brown. St. Brown was kind of gadgety. He was way more productive, but he was kind of used in a similar way. It's like, let's hand him the football maybe. So for me, he just kind of had a little bit of like everybody, it felt like, within Kendrick Law as a player. So it's like, I don't know how long this is going to take. I think it's probably going to take at least a year. I kind of felt like that last year with Tesla. But that being said, I think long run, he fits in really well to what the opening is around all those three other guys that you know are going to be here between J-Mo, and Isaac Tesla. And then beyond that, getting 2 defensive tackles towards the end. This is the most interesting part of this to me, is where this is going to go going forward, because we just signed J2 Fele as well. Like, we're getting small defensive tackles, very quick upfield. You're concerned because they're not super lengthy. Like, they don't really check all the boxes that you would think of for an interior defensive lineman, like when the lines were drafting them high. But instead, when they get towards these back ends, they're either taking a guy that's like, hey, he's kind of undersized, but he did play defensive tackle. He made it work. It's like maybe he was super quick, or maybe, you know, he's really smart. Like we had Mekhi Wingo, and now they throw Gil Howard on top of that. And they ended up with Tyree West at the end of the Tennessee. This feels like cheating, but I'm going to do it anyway. I'm going to consider Tyree West my reach. All right. I know he was a 7th round pick. He's my reach for this draft just because of who went after him. There's a few players that I would have probably considered instead, and we can get into those. But he'd be the guy I consider reach. Mainly, I didn't know who he was when we drafted him. Like, I don't know who this guy is. But that's normal on day 3. Either way, though, throughout this draft, very straight down the line in terms of positions. And I just felt like they felt like they were hitting a lot of doubles, right? That's the hope, is that's what they got. And I think that if you want them to get back to being a playoff team, which is hopefully they do. Hopefully they get back to being that team we know. I think they need to have a draft class that kind of felt like that first draft class, where in that time guys had to start because we had no position. We had every position open. But now it's like you actually need guys to probably exceed their timelines a little bit. And you at least drafted those within those first, I would say, 4 players. 3 to 4 of those guys, 2 to 4 of those guys at least should be able to make immediate impacts. And I think you're going to need that for that to be the case this season.
Anybody's denying the talent, but when you got a 300-plus pounder with foot issues, it can be questionable to say the least. Obviously, a very talented player in Caleb Banks. You guys had a ton of picks in this draft, absolute ton of picks. So why don't you walk me through your draft, Lupagus? What you liked, what you didn't like, what are Vikings fans saying about it? Go ahead and give me your thoughts.
Yeah, and let's just start with the big one, the Caleb Banks pick. When the pick was announced, we're waiting for Dylan Thieneman, and is he Caleb Banks? This was a guy I took off my board for round 1 just because of the foot injury that he had that showed up at the combine. He worked out with that broken foot, still dominated the drills. Like, we actually were talking about one of our live shows. Like, is that more impressive that he put these numbers with a broken foot? Or are we more concerned that he has a broken foot? And everybody's kind of split. Like, I don't know. It's actually kind of really impressive. I love what this kid can be. Like, at his peak, his ceiling is Chris Jones. I know it's a high thing to say, but, like, that's what he can be. 6'7", 330 pounds, absolute disrupting force. The problem is that foot injury, it just keeps on recurring, and you never really saw consistent domination at the college level that you should have seen here. Like, I get the gamble. I get what they're doing here. I'm surprised they did it. Like, this is a huge roll of the dice for a team that was preaching best player available, best player available, best player available, and they hit their biggest need. But when it comes down to defensive tackles who were actually there was question marks for every single one. I mean, Peter Woods, great in 2024, horrible in 2025. Caden McDonald, just a run stuffer. So why not take a swing on the guy who can actually be that game disruptor, can change the game from the inside? He was my favorite defensive tackle. Like, he was my DT1. I just wouldn't have done it at 18. And there's some flack about why didn't you trade back a few picks? Well, they're afraid someone else was going to jump them. And this was kind of, you saw this throughout this 2026 NFL draft. When teams had a guy that they wanted, they weren't afraid to reach. Look what the Jaguars did. I think every consensus pick they had was in the 200s. You just, after the 15th pick, everybody said, this is kind of a crapshoot. So the Vikings saw their guy, they wanted him. Apparently didn't want Dylan Thieneman, or didn't, it had the same value. So this was their guy. It's a roll of the dice. I love the upside, but it's a risky ass pick. And I actually think Vikings Nation is a little bit split on it. I think more are coming around, hoping that he can stay healthy, hoping he can give us that high ceiling that he does have. But man, it's such a roll of the dice. It's such a crapshoot. But let's go to round 2. Jake Golden, linebacker, Cincinnati. There was other players there on the board. I'm not going to say right now who those were that I would have took over him, but I get it. The versatility is huge. He can play inside. He can play outside. He actually played a bunch of snaps in the slot. I think this year for the Vikings, he's going to probably be our edge 3. We traded Jonathan Grenard. And Golday can, he can play some edge. So I think we're going to see him more this year than we'll probably see maybe his entire career, because I think he will eventually go inside and replace Eric Wilson down the road. So didn't love the pick at the time. There's other ways I would have gone, but I get the vision and I get why Brian Flores had to have him. Then the third round, Dominic Orange, getting big citrus here, getting the run stuffer, and you're double dipping at the defensive tackle position. This is your biggest need. You're getting the run stuffer, you're getting the penetrator. Like, I love that those two picks went hand in hand. Big citrus, man. Everybody loved that pick. Run stuffing, huge, big old body. They addressed the trenches finally, and they did with the next pick, Caleb Tiernan from Northwestern, the tackle that we thought maybe the Vikings would go receiver fairly early in this draft, but we were hearing rumblings that they might actually take a tackle because they're concerned about Christian Darrisaw's long-term health. Brian O'Neill, he was getting older. They haven't extended him yet. He had some injury issues last year. So now you get a guy, you get Vandermark in free agency, you get Tiernan here. I thought was good value. Like, I thought where they got him made a lot of sense. So that one, was actually not the sexiest pick, but it filled a big need and kind of an underrated need for the Minnesota Vikings. And then you use that pick that you got for Jonathan Grenard, get the safety from Miami, Jacoby Thomas. And I'm not going to say here like I knew who the hell this guy was when they took him. I was kind of like, who's this guy? But the more you read on him, high energy player, good ball skills, can come up and hit. I'm actually kind of excited for him. And if Harrison Smith doesn't come back, this is a guy that might actually compete for a starting spot. So good value overall. You're going to probably get some return from him. And you're going to the 5th round here. This was a little bit surprising, taking a fullback, Max Bredesen, with a 5th round pick. There's other guys on the board, more premier positions. And you get the fullback. I mean, CJ Ham did retire, so it's a huge need, and he's going to get some run as a rookie. He's going to be your fullback. He's a foxhole guy, they keep saying. He played with J.J. McCarthy. I mean, McCarthy was at his freaking house when he was selected. So you get your quarterback 2, one of his boys. So that was definitely something. I think he will produce. I thought it was a little bit early there. To me, that's probably my biggest reach, was taking Bredesen where they did. I love the Charles Demings pick. I mean, actually, he was before. Bredesen was after, but big corner. Brian Flores loves his big corners. And then trading back up into the 6th round. We were all screaming because we didn't get a running back yet. We passed on Emmett Johnson. The Chiefs jumped us for Emmett Johnson. There's a lot of smoke between the Vikings and Johnson. But we got our boy from Wake Forest, Damon Claiborne, the 4.3 speed, the home run hitting guy to pair with Aaron Jones and Jordan Mason. Boom. I think he's going to see a handful of snaps every single game. Gives you that dangerous threat from the backfield. Anytime he touches it, he can go. Very excited about that pick. And then he finished it off with Gavin Gerhardt, a center from Cincinnati. You couldn't even find a draft profile on this guy. We're sitting here around, day 3. Well, got about 13 beers in this, trying to figure out who the hell Gavin Gerhardt is. But consistent player. He's played every single snap at center. It's all he's ever been. But to me, there was other spots you could have addressed there. There was some edge guys I liked. There was a big old receiver from his alma mater that was sitting there. I would have gone those routes instead, but I get it. I get the vision, and I love the Vikings built the trenches this year. They haven't done that in years. They always ignore it. Maybe you get like a 6th round D tackle or a 6th round offensive tackle. They hit it early. They hit it hard. And that's what winning teams have to do, build through the trenches. And Vikings finally did it. So well done, Rob Brzezinski. We'll see if you can keep your job or if we're going to bring in someone new here soon.
All right, let's get on to the division winners. The Chicago Bears start off the draft with a bang, taking an Oregon Duck, Dylan Thieneman, safety. Phenomenal pick to start things out. I have a head scratcher. I'm not going to tell you what it is because you might address it, and I don't want to take your thunder, but I do have a head scratcher with your pick, and we'll address it at some point one way or another. But Nick, talk to me about your draft. Walk me through it. Let me know how Bears fans are feeling overall about this thing.
I know exactly what pick you're talking about. It's Sam Roush out of Stanford. There are a lot of head scratchers with that, but honestly, the more I've learned about the pick, the more I like it. So I'll just go one by one. Dylan Thieneman, 25. Clear need after we lost Kevin Byard to free agency. Bears wanted to go younger. They wanted to go faster. Runs a 4.36 40, 96 tackles last year, 2 interceptions, 5 pass deflections. Dennis Allen was literally smiling for a mile when the Bears picked it up. I love the video that they took of him when they called Dylan Thieneman because he brings such a key need to this team. And also, this is Dennis Allen's offseason. This was the offseason for Dennis Allen to get guys that he wanted to improve the defense. We lost Tremaine Edmonds, Kevin Byard, Jaquan Brisker, and Nashawn Wright. Well, they addressed that big need right there at safety with Dylan Thieneman to pair with Kobe Bryant for at least the next 3 years. So great pick overall. Fast. That's what the Bears wanted to do and has a killer instinct. So Thieneman was an awesome pick at number 1, at our first round pick at 25. Then we went and got arguably the best center in the draft at Logan Jones. We did get Garrett Bradbury this offseason for a late round pick, but a 1-year contract. And I was like, yeah, no, this makes sense. You have, like we did with Ozzie Trapillo, you have Logan Jones sit behind him for a year. And then he learns a little bit from not only Dan Rochar, but also Joe Tooney and Garrett Bradbury. So was ecstatic about that pick. 2 clear needs taken as we lost Drew Dahlman this offseason. So you went out and got the guy that could fill in for the future. Now, Sam Roush at 69, Bears traded back a little bit. Tight end out of Stanford. He's actually the heaviest tight end that was in the draft this year at 267, 6'6", but he runs under a 4.7 40 time. So he's got some wheels on him for a guy that big, but really good catch radius, very strong run blocker. And Ben Johnson wants to run that 13-man personnel, which that's the guy to go out and get. He was the best player available possible at the time for what the Bears were looking for. We lost Durham Smith this past offseason, so they went out and got him. He had 500 yards last year at Stanford, so I was not ecstatic about the pick when we first took it, but now I'm becoming more ecstatic about it because of the long-term plan. We only have Cole Kmet on a 2-year contract left, so he's on a 4-year rookie deal to pair with Colson Loveland, who has 4 years left if the Bears pick up his 5th-year option. So those two could be the tower of terror for quite some time. My head scratch pick, though, Jesse, that I'm still kind of wondering about is Xavier Thomas, who we took out of LSU, the wide receiver. He runs a 4.28 40, so I get it. He's super fast, but we have a very packed wide receiver room at the moment. We have J.J. Walker, Luther Burden, Rome Odunze, Khalif Raymond, Maurice Alexander. We're bringing in Scotty Miller for a tryout. The Bears are just packing the room right now. And I understand that there's going to be cuts during camp, but taking this guy in the 3rd round, there was definitely some edges still available. And Baz, that's who I wanted to hit on, was Deni Dennis Sutton. I really wanted the Bears to take him at 89, but obviously they didn't feel that way. The Bears have talked about how confident they are in the defensive line. I get what we got speed, but a guy that had 500 yards last year at LSU as a wide receiver, I was like, okay, I don't think we needed that as much, but it's kind of in Ben we trust kind of deal. Now, great value pick, Baz also said it earlier, was Malik Muhammad out of Texas, big defensive back. Tyree Stevenson's on the last year of his rookie contract. We don't know about Terrell Smith's coming back from his injury too. Zay Frazier does come back, but the Bears wanted to address that need because we did lose Nashawn Wright this past year to free agency. He went to the Jets. But a really good value pick. During the combine, I was like, okay, this guy's definitely a day 2 pick. Ended up getting him day 3, first one of the day. I was like, okay, very high value pick, like what the Bears are doing. Dennis Allen clearly wants him. And then Keyshawn Elliott, linebacker out of Arizona, also played at New Mexico State. This past year had 7 sacks, 100 total tackles. This guy's a tackling machine, can get after the quarterback. Noah Sewell's on the last year of his contract. Devin Bush is only here for 3 years. TJ Edwards only for 2 more years. So this was more of a long-term move for the Chicago Bears, but a lot of athleticism, good player overall, and he has that killer instinct that I really like to see on the field. And then finally, the Bears traded their 2 7th-round picks up into the 6th round for Georgia Tech defensive tackle Jordan Vandenberg, who big 6'3", 300-pound defensive lineman, explosive off the line, runs a good under a 4.9 40 time. So he's a big man with some wheels, super athletic as well, scored a 10 RAS score. And he played really well last year at Georgia Tech, 3 sacks, but a ton of tackles for loss. So I talked about how I wanted Dominique Orange. Well, we got a guy that can do similar type things of him in the 6th round. Not saying that he's as good, but a developmental player for sure that could hopefully learn behind Grady Jarrett and Javon Dexter this upcoming year. So I think the Bears did a really solid job. I was very happy after round 3. I was still scratching my head a little bit of starting day 3, but then I was like, okay, there's a plan here. Ton of needs addressed, ton of depth guys brought in. We also had a monster free agency, even though we were limited with cap. So a lot of holes were already filled. But overall, I think the Bears had a really solid draft overall.